Kane put you up to this?
No. This shit just for me.
So, Dru Tejada is someone who's been stuck in two worlds ever since the beginning of Ghost, and it stems from his love for art, him wanting to live a normal life, and getting a bit of a taste of this when he went to Stansfield to keep an eye on Tariq. But there's always dangers and risks of believing you can live this double life without consequences, and it's always the innocent parties that end up being hurt because of the actions of those in the game. Now, since Lorenzo came back, Dru's destiny seems to have been laid out in front of us, and at some point, Lorenzo believes he will be the head of the Tejada organization, and he was also teased by Monet in season 1. But family or not, nobody is just gonna hand you the throne in this world. You have to take it, just like Kane has now realized. But what is Dru willing to do when his time comes, where he believes it is the right time for him to take over? Because his time will definitely come, just like it did for Michael Corleone. And as we run through this video, you're going to realize how Dru has been using Law 25 of recreating himself to create this new powerful image of himself, where his appearance, emotion, has changed and adapted to suit the situation he's in. Now, the beginning of Dru's evolution started similar to Kane and Diana. He's a part of the Tejada organization where Monet and Lorenzo were honest with who they were as parents and what line of work they were in. And just like Kane was a muscle to the Tejada organization, Dru also had his own role. At the dinner table where Uncle Frank came home, Monet told Diana to get the dishes. She told Kane to take Tariq back to Stansfield because she wanted him to handle him to make sure he keeps his mouth shut. But Dru's job was to look after Uncle Frank. And these jobs she was giving wasn't a coincidence, because we saw her teaching Diana later on about how to see these signs with men, and we're gonna touch on Diana very briefly later on in this video. Now, Lorenzo also wanted Dru to handle a situation with Lil Guap, because he wanted someone with a calm head on his shoulders because of how his father took a bullet for him. And on the other hand, we saw Monet sending Kane to watch his brother's back because she had doubts whether Dru could get the job done. But this situation showed how both parents could be right and wrong. Now, Dru hesitated to draw his gun to get Lil Guap in line, but Kane coming in and shooting up the place was definitely irresponsible because they almost got caught by the cops if it wasn't for Ramirez's help. So I guess you could say both parents were right and wrong, but also how they were yet to learn so much more about their own kids and what they were capable of. So, as we saw Lorenzo making a point about Dru being the head of the family organization, and as the season went on with Kane's rebellious actions, it became even more apparent why Dru was always destined to be the one to take over.
I've been seeing this whole thing wrong. Great leaders always take the fall, deserved or not, because it's the quickest way to make things right, and you did that.
But even though it became clear with Monet, it was Dru who was destined to be a future leader. Every single leader of an organization comes with his flaws and weaknesses, and Dru showed his fair share across season 1. He hesitated to pull on Lil Guap and kill him. He was also someone who was distracted by his double life with art, which also made him connect with Ev, something which we've learned can be fatal in this game.
I only did it because Dru's not built for it.
I don't pull until I have to. Ma.
Now, when it came to the Guap situation, something the power of psychology teach is let people underestimate you, because when you strike, they'll never see you coming, because they'll never consider you as a threat, and if they don't consider you as a threat, they're more likely to drop their guard. And this is something we're going to come back round to in just a moment, so keep that in mind. But arguably what was the biggest turning point in him turning into this real savage was him being shot at the end of season 1, and this definitely changed him in more ways than one. So as we moved into season 2, Dru was very much in recovery, but he was also someone who was thinking ahead, because he was done taking orders from Monet and living a life based on how Monet wanted them to live. And compared to Kane, Dru was a thinker, quiet, but more calculating and more strategic, and it showed when he told Zeke how Monet had a position for everybody when Zeke made it pro. And this wasn't done by accident. Dru knew exactly what he was doing, which was trying to destroy Monet's exit plan. And also when Monet had Dru babysit Zeke when they needed to raise $2 million for Davis McLean, Dru was the one who stepped up and made the most money, but he was never appreciated by Monet, mainly because he made things worse by striking the reporter. So the good comes with the bad, and as much as smarts Dru showed, and as much as character development he showed, especially in the second half of the season, he still had his weaknesses, and Diana is arguably the most dangerous kid out of all the Tejada kids in my opinion.
Yo, did you call Kane this morning before he picked you to connect, or did he reach out to you?
He rolled up on me.
And Dru failed to see the game Kane played with a new connect, but Diana saw straight through it, and this is why when we come to analysis of Diana's character, we could arguably make a case of Diana being the Tejada's most dangerous kid in the future as well, because Diana was busy making a lot of moves in season 2 with Lorenzo's release, using Tariq to get what she wanted, and even asking the right questions when Monet disappeared, as well as getting to the bottom of Zeke's age. But with Diana, of course, she's also got her own weaknesses. But with Dru, he was left a little isolated at the end of season 2 because of his recovery and him not being able to draw. But the big change came when Lorenzo was released from prison, because now Monet was no longer at the head of the table, Lorenzo was. And we all know he prefers Dru over Kane from season 1. So his first call of business was to pull Dru up the ranks, and Lorenzo did this in a very subtle way, because he knew he was distracted by Ev. But Lorenzo tasked him to follow Kino to keep his mind on the game, and Dru's mind was definitely a lot more on the game, especially when he was reminiscing of how he was shot. And this wasn't just him showing us how much it affected him, but also how it changed him, because now he was ready to do what needed to be done. He told Lorenzo if they had to take out the threat of Kino, then that's what they had to do, and in complete contrast to season 1, where we saw him hesitate with Lil Guap, we saw him kill Kino and also kill Lil Guap, and when Dru turns, he really does turn into a monster. And this goes back to how I mentioned how Dru was someone who was underestimated, and how he could use this to his advantage. This is where he used it against Lil Guap, because he didn't believe Dru had it in him.
We've been here before, Dru. You ain't got it in you. You ain't got it in you, Drusito.
But he did have it in him this time. He was a changed man, and Lorenzo even taught him no loose ends. But Dru did this for himself because this is something he should have done in season 1. But even though we saw this acceptance from Dru about who he was and what he needed to now do, one thing he wasn't able to do was kill Ev. And this is a threat and a weakness that still remains as we move into season 3. Now, Dru and Ev's relationship has been up and down, even though Dru's sexuality ain't no secret. And then you've got Monet and Lorenzo, who was trying to keep him away from Ev. And then there's Monet, who's trying to create an exit strategy, but Lorenzo wants to keep his mind on the game. And this is why it's so hard for someone like Dru, because he's stuck where his destiny is being chosen for him. But now Ev's involved in the other side of Dru's life because of how he name dropped him to Jabari and Carrie, and even though they're dead, Detective Whitman's been sniffing around, and he's a detective who pays close attention to detail. So remember how he noticed when Carrie moved her couch from the last time he was at her place. He also noticed there were clothes on the floor when he went to see Ev. And this is something I'm sure he could question Ev about in season 3. And this is the reason why Lorenzo and Kane wanted to make sure Ev was taken care of, because he knows way too much. But Dru not being able to kill Ev shows he's not a real killer, not yet anyway, because as Kanan once said, you ain't a real killer till you kill someone you love. But does Dru have it in him to take the next step and kill Ev? Of course, only time will tell, but regardless of whether it's Dru who kills him, Lorenzo, or Kane, his death is the next step in Dru turning into this real savage, because this will close all the doors from his double life and leaving only one option, the streets, and possibly taking over from Lorenzo when he is killed. So that's Dru and how he's slowly becoming a very dangerous character and someone who's probably destined to lead, but also touching on how Diana could also be the most dangerous when it comes to the Tejada kids. So drop all your thoughts down below on Dru Tejada going into season 3, and of course if you're new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 2 Ghost and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.